Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we're going to be talking about the banner that just passed featuring SSR4 Meguru and the SR Kogane, and we'll be talking about the event Tenka. Now, the unfortunate part is that I feel like this event went really quickly, so these cards are unfortunately already gone. However, two of these three are permanents, so it's still worth talking about them regardless. Starting things off with Meguru 4. In our first proper instance of a new SSR replacing a previous iteration, SSR4 Meguru has arguably replaced SSR1 for most teams that intend to utilize her. Mono 4 in particular will greatly appreciate this newest version of Meguru, who occupies the same roles but is less powerful than her. Simple and effective passives, appeals that are very similar to Meguru 1 but with slightly more emphasis on dance or vocal depending, with much better stat uncaps. There's really nothing to hate about this Meguru, and her value to you will depend on how interested you are in running Illumination Stars in Grade Fence. Her roles are Buffer, Dual Attacker, and Center. And it is also worth noting, for people that are watching the video now or a little later, this Meguru is permanent and she is on the reroll pool, and I think that she might be one of the best reroll cards in the game right now. So, maybe worth it if you haven't started Shiny yet, and you want to start today. So what does she do? Her initial skill is a Vocal 2.5 that also has a Dance 1.5 appeal, and her Link appeal is a Vocal Dance 40% buff for 5 turns. When maxed out, this becomes a Vocal 2.0 and a Dance 4.0 with the same Link skill of Vocal Dance 40% up for 5 turns. And her passives, and uncaps, at 1 star she gains a Vocal 30% buff if you have an active Dance buff. Remember, that means it is a Dance buff on the right side of the screen, not a passive buff. This skill is a passive, but buffs gained from an appeal, such as her initial skill, is an active buff. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 60% up if you have an active visual buff, has a 20% chance to activate 2 times. Her 3-star uncap is a Vocal Dance combination of plus 100, so that is plus 100 Vocal, plus 100 Dance, and a 4-star she also gains an additional Dance 100 uncap. Her memory appeal, once maxed out, is a Vocal Dance 1.0 appeal, and links into an additional Vocal Dance 1.0 appeal. Overall, very good. Like I said, I think this Meguru might be one of the best permanent cards that we have right now, just in terms of doing damage. Her uncaps are really good, her passives are very strong and easy to activate, and her appeals hit hard and buff really well. For recommended supports, the build intention with Meguru is mostly the same compared to Mono 4. But you will have to drop limited Meguru because you can't exactly run her alongside the same character. Due to her sheer power, limited mono makes a clear return on this build. You can opt for SSR1 mono if you do not have limited mono. And if you remember the Mono 4 video, the build is practically the same. Just mix and match your favorite vocal and dance cards and you'll probably see reasonable success. And as for recommended teammates, this might look familiar if you saw the Mono 4 video because it is practically the same team, except this time we have options for Mono. The Ultimate Illumination Stars team has only grown stronger with the introduction of new Meguru. You can choose to run Meguru as the center, but the team is more or less the same. You could opt for Mono 2 or Mono 3 if you lack Mono 4. And the other new inclusion, of course, is Rinzai 4, who is a very, very powerful support right now, and we'll probably see reasonable play in most teams that can utilize vocal buffs. Overall, this card gets an S+ as a center. Meguru gets an S+ as being Mono 4, but weaker. And don't worry, we'll get to her again soon enough. If you lack Mono 4, this memory appeal is perfectly usable, and is honestly on par with most of the memory appeals in Fess. She could be double S, but for people that already have Mono 4, this Meguru 4 is a worse center. So, you might see her, you might not. It's hard to say. She could technically be double S, but again, time will tell. And as a unit, also S+. Being a direct upgrade to Meguru 1 will earn this card an S+. There's really no downside to this Meguru unless you plan on running an Illumination Stars mixed team and want more visual buffs, since it is the main sacrifice compared to Meguru 1. Meguru 4 is a gateway character to the Illumination Stars metagame and is a damn good starter reroll SSR. Next we have the Gacha support SR, Kogane. It's been 2 months since our last Kogane SR, 6 months if you don't count event cards, but Kogane is back. In a lot of ways, you can compare this Kogane support to Koga Tree, if you're more familiar with that name. Both are visual SRs with similar skill trees, but this latest Kogane is less risky in the revenge department, with some tacked on attention down and a better unique mastery. Both have their pros and cons, but I feel this Kogane will be useful for beginner visual teams looking for a buff or two. Her skills are Idol's Bond, which reaches rank 7, Visual Mastery Visual at rank 9, Promise Recovery and Rest Boost of 1, and Stamina Support of 5. As for her passives and skill, at 1 star she has a visual 15% up if you're in the visual position, has a 30% chance to activate 1 time. At 2 star it's a visual 25% up if your mental is 74% or lower, same activation chance as the 1 star passive. Her uncap is a visual 50, and her 4 star skill is a visual 2.5 that applies an attention 5% down buff for 3 turns. She gets a B+ or an A- depending on how you feel. Kogane hovers a weird line. On one hand, her visual mastery being +9 will be very useful for many teams looking to pump up their visual stat. On the other hand, her 2-star passive is surprisingly weak even for SR standards, but the less than 74% requirement makes it useful for practically any team in a vacuum. Most teams will take at least 25% of their health and damage, so this buff will pop up much more often than the 50%, where they kinda have to aim for that one, as opposed to this one just happening passively. Wish the attention down buff was a little larger for more Antika plays, but what can you do? And lastly, the Event SR Tenka. P-SSR4 Tenka is our latest event card, and her strangely static appeal animation aside, this Tenka feels even more niche than the usual niche card. Her appeals aren't exactly bad, but they don't bring anything new to the table for Alstroemeria. Her memory appeal might as well not exist either. Her 2-star passive for Grade Fest feels pretty awful with the extremely late activation condition, and the mental regen on her appeals isn't exactly the most enticing either. I think this card will maybe shine best in Collabo Fest, where having sustain can be clutch, but other than that, just use P-SSR1 Tenka if you don't want to use her SSRs or don't have her SSRs. Her roles are healer, and we'll say she's probably a good Collabo Fest unit. So what does she do? Her initial skill is a visual 1.5 appeal that applies a mental regen of 5% for 4 turns, and links into a visual 1.5 appeal. At max it becomes a vocal 2.5 with the same health regen, and the link is a vocal 1.5 appeal. And her passives and uncap, at 1 star it's a vocal 12% buff if your mental is 75% or higher with a 40% chance to activate 1 time. Her 2-star passive is a mental 10% heal if the turn count is 6 or later, has a 40% chance to activate 1 time. Her uncap is a +50 to vocal, and her memory appeal at max is an attention down of 30% for 3 turns and links into a mental heal of 10%. For recommended supports, honestly, just build her as a mixture of vocal visual to fit your needs. Health regeneration isn't amazingly common, especially when you eliminate the ability to use Tenka supports. If you build her for Collabo Fest, include some damage cut passives to keep yourself alive. Now as for the grades. And if you noticed, we did not do team building, because honestly, I don't think you're going to be really running this card too often. As a center, D. Just don't. And as a unit, somewhere between C and B-. Tenka, you're lucky you at least have a vocal 4 appeal, to be honest. As mentioned before, I think this card holds very little value in Grade Fest due to the nature of her being very slow and not particularly impactful. She probably shines best in Collabo Fest, where you can regen and take advantage of late passives, but that's really the only silver lining here. But don't worry, we're not done with the video yet, because we have to end on a re-review, but it's short. Mono 4. She's back, because I needed to re-evaluate how impactful this card really is on Grade Fest. In the original review, I underestimated how strong her memory appeal and appeals were, and since the review, Mono 4 has quickly become the face of basically every fest, regardless of trends. I won't do a full review since the video already exists, but I am changing my scores for her. As a center, she's a triple S, and as a unit, she's somewhere between SS or SS-. A Vocal Dance 1.5 memory followed by another 1.5 makes her incredibly powerful with stacking buffs, and the fact that, at the time of this recording, 54 out of the top 100 players in Grade Fest are Mono 4 teams is very telling of her overall impact on the game. Her appeals and passives help immensely to cement her as arguably one of the best cards in the game right now. And that's the end of the video. Thank you as always for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let people know what we're trying to do by bringing more Shiny Colors content to you. Next time we'll be talking about the banner that actually just dropped at the time of this recording, which is the latest limited Kiriko and limited Fuyuko support. So I hope you look forward to that review, and thank you for supporting the channel so far in 2019. I know we came in a little late on the scene, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing how 2020 holds for shiny colors and for the channel. So, I'm Cho, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.